Good afternoon. We're going to resume our meeting to the 54th meeting of the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs. This meeting is being televised. Today we are pleased to have with us the Honourable Karina Gold, Minister of Democratic Institutions. She's accompanied by two officials from the Privy Council Office, Ian McCowan, Deputy Secretary to Cabinet under Governance, and Natasha Kim, Director of Democratic Reform. Committee members will remember that Minister Gold appeared on February 7th and agreed to return to discuss the mydemocracy.ca website and the government's planned agenda for electoral reform. I'll now return the floor over to the Minister for her opening statement, and thank you very much for coming back, and we appreciate you being here. It's very helpful for the committee. So you're on.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be back here, just a little over a month from the last time I was here. So it's good to see all of you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation as well. Je vous remercie de m'avoir invité à prendre.
So thank you for speaking to you once again. I'm very happy to be here appearing today before you, and I'm happy to contribute to your deliberations as best as I can. Yesterday we celebrated International Women's Day. I was very proud to have been invited to speak on March 7th at the Daughters of the Vote Gala organized by Equal Voices to mark the importance of this day. The initiative, Daughters of the Vote, brought to Parliament young women aged 18 to 23, each from one coming from one of our 338 federal electoral ridings, to represent her community and communicated her vision for Canada. These young women sat in the MPs' places yesterday at the House of Commons, and they were able to meet with their members at the House of Commons.
Young women, and to look into what the future holds. All of us who have the privilege to serve also have the duty to support and encourage young Canadians to engage in our democracy. In particular, this committee has the unique opportunity to reflect on how to ensure all Canadians are best prepared and able to participate in civic life. Your study of the CEO report and its recommendations position you as stewards and champions of the franchise. The daughters who are in Ottawa today and all Canadians are counting on your reflections. Which is why I would like to take this opportunity to thank you specifically for your work so far on the Chief Electoral Officer's recommendations report. I read with interest your interim report that was tabled on Monday. I'm going to spend more time reviewing it and reflecting on your recommendations as the government considers its response. I am very happy to see that you have reached a consensus on the key recommendations that are at the core of the Chief Electoral Officer's proposed voting services modernization efforts. In addition, you have collectively supported a range of other recommendations, including recommendations to improve the delivery of voting services to non-resident Canadians and enhanced information sharing authorities to improve the quality of the National Register of Electors, the latter being something that may come before you for consideration as part of Bill C-33. These are important recommendations that will improve our electoral process. There was also consensus on many of the Chief Electoral Officer's recommendations related to ensuring an accessible electoral system for electors and candidates with disabilities. Enhancing inclusion as a defining value of our democracy stands high among my priorities for the coming months and years. Je me réjouis à l'avance de vos travaux à venir sur les recommandations.
I'm happy that you're going to be looking at the recommendations put out by the Chief Electoral Officer.
On the issue of the length of the election period and polling day, recommendations A21 and A22. These recommendations have implications for the political financing regime and the participation of Canadians in the voting process. Recommendation A25 would address the question of partisan nominees for poll staff and promises improvements in Election Canada's recruitment processes. In light of your support for recommendation A1, your view on this recommendation would be informative. Recommendations A33 and 34 would provide additional tools for the Commissioner of Canada Elections. My mandate letter includes a commitment to enhance Canadians' trust in the integrity of our system, and I would value your thoughts on these recommendations. La recommandation A39.
Recommendations A39 pertain to broadcasting arbitration adjustments, the way that political parties communicate with Canadians, and the nature of the media have changed considerably over time, and there have been few amendments made to these provisions over the past few years. The recommendation B9 has significant consequences for those electors that are nonconformists at a sexual level, and in line with the C-16 bill, I believe that this warrants consideration because it will ensure equality in all aspects of the federal government, and recommendation B-15 will have an impact on the process to help disabled voters.
18, 26, 27, and 43 are all related in different ways to the integrity of the process and Canadians' trust in that process. As trust is paramount to the success of any election and the peaceful transfer of power, I would welcome the committee's thoughtful input on these as well. Finally, recommendation B44 raises the important issue of how we adapt to a fixed date context for elections in a Westminster system. I would ask the committee, if you think it of merit, to reflect on how this and other recommendations are impacted and what the challenges and opportunities are in relation to fixed date elections in the Canadian experience. All of these recommendations raise a variety of questions that would benefit from the expertise of this committee. They seek ways to keep our electoral laws up to date with an evolving expectations of electors and political actors. Your considerate review of these matters is valuable. As I noted during my last appearance, my mandate letter includes a commitment to enhance the transparency of fundraising activities. In meeting this commitment, I intend to introduce legislation that makes fundraising events public and to require additional disclosure of who attends and when. We have heard Canadians' concerns in this regard, and we intend to act. I hope to introduce legislation this spring, and if referred to your committee by the House, I would very much appreciate your consideration of the bill and any recommendations you may have. And of course, there is also Bill C-33. Your work so far on the recommendations report will well position you in considering this bill and its measures to reduce barriers to voting while enhancing the integrity of the electoral process. C-33, I believe, complements the work that you are undertaking with the CEO recommendations. The road to the 2019 election is getting ever shorter. I am committed, as I know all members of this committee are, to improving our electoral system before the next election to the benefit of all Canadians. To accomplish this goal, Canadians need us to work together. I hope to continue to receive your valuable input to inform the direction of improving our electoral process to make it accessible, efficient, and equitable for voters. Elections Canada needs sufficient time to implement any changes made to the Canada Elections Act before the next election, and would like to be election ready well in advance of an expected writ. The more time Elections Canada has to prepare, the better. Nous devons également prendre en considération.
We must also consider that other legislative amendments could be necessary in order to implement your recommendations. The development and drafting of this bill, as well as the discussions and significant debates that will take place in the House of Commons and the Senate, must not be done too quickly.
Needs, as well as to give parliamentarians the time they need. My hope would be to introduce legislation before the end of this year that would build on your hard work with respect to the Chief Electoral Officer's recommendations. It is our responsibility to take the time to get this right. It is also our responsibility to get it done. It's what Canadians expect. If the House could have your next report before the House rises for the summer, preferably by May 19th, I think we would be well positioned to advance some significant reforms that would improve the electoral process for Canadians. I'm sharing my thinking with the committee because I sincerely want to work together with you. I respect this committee's independence and know the committee will set its own agenda. I hope my remarks today help provide insight to you about my thinking and perspective on the matters before this committee. Je vous remercie encore une fois de m'avoir invité.
Once again, thank you for inviting me here today, and I'm eager to work with you on these important issues.
You left lots of time for questions, so we'll go on with Ms. Sahota.
Thank you, Minister, for being here today. I'm glad you started with talking about the Daughters of the Vote. I thought it was particularly a striking sight to sit there in the gallery yesterday and see the young lady that was taking up my seat and all 338 seats in Parliament yesterday from across this country. I got the opportunity to really get to know my daughter of the vote in the months working up to yesterday, and we got the opportunity to sit and have lunch yesterday as well. Her name is Megan Bottomley. She's a fourth-year political science student from McGill. She's very intelligent, a very politically driven young lady. And as you know, despite Parliament having done very well this past election by electing some more women, we're still very far from gender parity. And I also, as you know, sat on the Committee of Electoral Reform, and this discussion came up quite a bit there. I wasn't, however, always convinced that that alone was going to create, get us closer to having gender parity without other particular mechanisms in place and other things that need to be done to modernize Parliament. So what are you, as the Minister of Democratic Institutions, doing in order to make sure that we increase the chances of women who'd like to run for politics? Because we know they succeed and they do very well once they're here, but it's that decision to run that is that troubles so many and is difficult to make. So what suggestions do you have in mind?
Thank you very much, Ruby, for your question. And I too was, particularly motivated and heartened to see the 338 young women who took up their seats yesterday in the House of Commons. I think it's an incredible window into what the future could hold and a possibility. And I had the opportunity to address them on a couple of occasions on Tuesday, on the 7th, one on a panel on women in politics, and the other as their keynote speaker during their banquet gala on Tuesday evening. And one of the things that struck me was a question that one of the young women asked about how I had the confidence as a young woman to run for office. And it reminded me that so many times when you ask young men to run, they often say, okay, sign me up, when do I start? And when you ask young women to run, they say, why me? Oh, I think I need to get some more education, or I need to do a bit more to be prepared to do it. And I think part of it is making sure that we have those positive role models that young women or women in general see, that are able to see themselves reflected in the House of Commons and see themselves reflected in potential opportunities. But also to know that there are many champions that they have out there to ensure that when they do get here, they are successful, and to know that sometimes the barriers that we think are there in front of us, sometimes they're more imagined than they are real. There are very real barriers when it comes to finances, when it comes to systems that are in place that discriminate against women. But there are often times where we think those limits those limits sometimes can be society imposed on us by saying that as a young woman, you don't have the experience, or you don't have the capability, the ability to do it, and it's going to be detrimental to your campaign. And to demonstrate that there are real examples that when women do run, they do succeed and they do well, I think is really important. I would be really curious to hear from the committee, as you're going through your reflections, on what you think some tangible measures are that could be done, and how we as parliamentarians, we as a government, we as Canadians can do what we can to foster greater participation, not just of women, but also of diversity in Canadian politics.
Can I get some insight from you on one of the recommendations that we passed in our interim report, recommendation 37, proposed that child care expenses that are incurred as a result of running as a candidate would be reimbursable up to 90%. Now, this committee all agreed to that recommendation, and the recommendation also included personal expenses for those with disabled people that they're taking care of as well. And that can be a real challenge. I know, as a mother of a young child myself, there are other women that are taking care of other loved ones, in their lives. It can be quite challenging to try to. Running as a candidate takes a lot of time away from those responsibilities, and to get the means financially to provide for the children, those that are dependent on you. So how do you feel about that recommendation? Is that one that, that your department had looked at, and are there other recommendations that you can point to us as being significant in changing that decision for a woman to run?
Well, so as I received the report or the House received the report on Monday, I've been going through this, and I think that there are a number of really important recommendations that the committee has agreed to that I'll be considering and bringing forward for the government's response. But on a more general response. I think what's important for me personally as the Minister of Democratic Institutions is we're doing what we can to lower those barriers so that everyone can participate in politics if they so choose to. And I think that this is something that's in that is good to consider as we move forward with that line of thinking. But I think it's incredibly important that we're reducing barriers for people with different financial means, reducing barriers for people with different personal or family obligations to make sure that we do get that full breadth and that full diversity of candidates who are able to participate in elections.
Do I have more time?
45 seconds.
Okay, well, thank you for your answers, and I look forward to the legislation that is to come in the future, and I know that this committee has taken this topic very seriously about women running, and we want to make advancements in that area. So I look forward to the things that are going to be coming out of your ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Minister, thanks for being here today. My questions, you probably won't be surprised, will be with regards to foreign influence in Canadian elections, with regards to third-party spending. And obviously, that was the same topic of some of my queries the last time you were here. I think it was February the 7th. I'm hoping that you'll have had a chance in the interim to get a bit more up to speed on the file, and we can have a bit more substantive conversation today than we were able to have at that particular meeting. Now, as you're aware, I'm sure, given that we'd had conversation about it previously, the Chief Electoral Officer, or the former, I guess now, Chief Electoral Officer, in November had said that there was really no way to be able to restrict or prevent foreigners or foreign organizations from trying to influence Canadian elections, and that there's no restrictions on third-party spending currently for things like polling or phone banking or websites or anything that's not considered under advertising. So when obviously last time you were here, in response to one of my questions, you indicated that you were committed to ensuring that there would be no foreign influence in our elections. But I've read through the transcripts when you appeared at the question period in the Senate on the 14th of February, and there you responded to Senator Frum, and this is a quote, from the experience that we have found that this is not something that is currently present and so significant that it would impact the electoral system or the confidence that Canadians have during a writ period or during an election. And then you also responded to Senator Batters with, and I quote again, there's very little evidence to suggest that foreign money is influencing Canadian elections by third parties. Now, I would say that there was certainly no question that in the last election we did see quite an unprecedented amount of spending from third parties. And third parties are able to spend essentially unlimited amounts outside of advertising, and they are, of course, able to take foreign money and it can be put into those things as well. So I don't think that really lines up that well with the statements that you made in that question period. And I would say that given those responses, it seems to me that despite that previous commitment that was made to ensuring that there'd be no foreign influence in our elections, that it really seems like this issue is being brushed aside by this government. And that really is quite stark in terms of its contrast with the Chief Electoral Officer, or the former Chief Electoral Officer, and what he had testified. So I've got several questions. I'll ask that you try and be as brief as you can, especially in response to the questions. But certainly, want to make sure you have the chance to answer them. So I just wanted to know if in this interim period since we first had heard from you, is this something that your department or your staff or yourself have looked into, and is it something that you've been briefed on?
So thank you, Blake, for your question and for your due diligence. So I'll answer your question, then I have a question for you, I guess. The first one is yes. After we had this meeting, I did request a briefing on it, and we did look into it. And it's important to note that there's not much evidence to suggest that there is third-party influence in terms of spending.
Could I interrupt you there? I'm sorry. I got the gist of what you're saying there. But there certainly seems to be some dispute about this, so I'm wondering if you could provide that briefing to this committee. so that
Well,
we'd be
so
able to.
I'm wondering what evidence you have for the dispute on this, or what suggestions you may have
Sure.
with regards to how to move this forward.
You know, we obviously would be happy to have that conversation, but I think, you know, you've obviously got a briefing that you have that indicates something that you believe is otherwise. We would wonder if you'd be willing to table that with this committee so that we would have the benefit of that information as well.
Yeah, sure. We'll provide information
Great.
with regards to that.
Thank you, Minister. We'll look
Yeah.
forward to that then. And then we could obviously have a further conversation, hopefully, at that point. Now, I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more, because there is certainly no question in my mind under Section 331 and 349 of the Canada Elections Act, there would be some need to introduce some changes, I think, to be able to ensure there's no foreign influence in our elections through, you know, third-party spending. So I'm wondering if you might be willing to commit to looking at those sections and making changes that are required in order to ensure that there wouldn't be this ability for unlimited spending by third parties for things like polling or phone banking or election websites. You know, whether it sounds like there is some dispute on your part as to whether this is a problem, but whether it is a problem or not, it certainly could become one. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to commit to making those changes to ensure that we don't see that kind of foreign influence in our elections. And that would obviously have to be done both for inside the RIP period and outside of it. Is that something you could commit to looking at and introducing?
Well, I would certainly be interested to hear your thoughts on what those suggested recommendations might be for consideration with regards to the information that I have and have requested. One thing that I think we should be quite clear about is that we do have very strict rules in Canada when it comes to foreign money in Canadian politics. So that does already exist, and
Sorry to interrupt again, Minister, but you would be correct in saying that is true of when it comes to political parties, but it certainly isn't true when it comes to third-party spending. There's clearly a huge loophole there, a very glaring loophole that exists there that would allow essentially unlimited federal foreign influence in terms of anything outside of what's considered advertising. So I certainly hope that this is something the government, you know, given your commitment obviously that you had made to us previously, that you think it's important that we try to do everything we can to prevent foreign influence, that this is something that you would give considerable thought to, because it's easy to repeat a talking point that there is no ability now, but there is in terms of third parties, and that's certainly different than what we're hearing. So I certainly hope you'll look at that and consider it. Okay, well, hopefully we'll get some chance to carry on in a future round.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Mr. Christofferson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, thank you again for your attendance. Also wanted to thank you for the recent meet and greet meeting we had in your office. Appreciate it. I just take a brief moment to comment on the process that you're offering. I want to say publicly that I am as impressed with the change in approach with the government, your ministry, and the work of this committee as I was outraged at the way that C-33 was so unceremoniously dumped on us in the House. And there was a commitment made that was going to change. We're still in the process of getting through that, but I do want to say publicly that I've been very impressed with the attempt of the government members and yourself to get us back on a positive track where we are working hand in hand, as you had promised in the campaign, and as is best for Parliament when we, and this committee in particular, can work that way. And I just want to say I'm very impressed. You continue, however, to load up the agenda of the committee, and I just want to remind you that it's going to take an even greater effort at coordinating and talking, because you're not the only source of our work. We get it from all over, and some things, and I refuse to stop using the word, trump other things, and that can slow us down on our own well-intentioned agenda. So that's still going to be a struggle, a lot of work in front of this committee, but I wanted to again emphasize I was incredibly outraged at what your government did with C-33, and I am as as impressed now with the government recognizing they were wrong and an attempt to make it right, and I hope that continues. And I look forward to working on this critically important file for all of us. And with that, Chair, I would like to give the balance of my time to my colleague, Mr. Cullen, who is also our Democratic Reform critic, sir.
Welcome, Nathan Cullen, from the second most beautiful riding in the country.
There he goes again. Point of order. Thank you, Minister, for attending. Wondering, because ostensibly I think you're also here for mydemocracy.ca. Do we know what the cost was for that?
The cost in terms of the actual contract with Vox Pop?
No, the all-in cost. We were waiting. We knew the contract to Vox Pop, but the all-in cost we were waiting from the last time we talked.
Right. So if in terms of electoral reform writ large, I think it's in the order of about 3.8 million when you add in staff, contract, the mail out from Canada Post. The minister's tour would be in that.
Okay.
But if it would be helpful to the committee, we could provide a detailed breakdown of the costs that have been spent on electoral reform.
Very helpful. Minister, do you think it was a success, that exercise, the mydemocracy.ca part of the government's outreach?
Well, first of all, just before I want to get back to thank David for his comments, and I am looking forward to working with this whole committee moving forward, and I hope that we do. And I just want to recognize the fact that I know you have lots of work ahead of you, and I know you've got big tasks, but I also have confidence in the ability of all the members on this committee to get through all of that, and I'm looking forward to doing this together. With regards to mydemocracy.ca, I do think that it was a worthwhile exercise to have been had, and I think that the fact that there were 380,000 Canadians roughly who participated was, it was quite good in the sense of that's the largest participation in a consultation that the government has
So
had.
was there a specific answer or some result you got from that survey that led to your government concluding to abandon the electoral reform commitment? Was there some way that Canadians answered or didn't answer a question that said, okay, that's our consultation is proven through this exercise that we shouldn't go ahead?
So the decision was made based on all of the many different pieces of the consultations and the work that went into the past year of engagement with Canadians.
When did you get your mandate letter from the Prime Minister?
My mandate letter was made public on February 1st.
When did you receive it?
My mandate letter was made public on February 1st.
Okay, I just want to know when you received it. I know when it was made public. I was there. Did you receive it on February 1st?
So my mandate letter was made public on February 1st.
Okay, that's...
You can ask it many more times. But
I know, and you cannot answer it many more times. That seems strange because the receiving of a letter doesn't exactly require state secret guardianship level. All I'm asking is when you received your letter. It's not a challenging question.
And I'm responding that it was made public on February 1st.
Okay.
There you go, man.
Transparency. You watched the Young Women in the House, Daughters of Democracy, Daughters of the Vote. Did you hear Chelsea Montgomery's question to the Prime Minister?
I heard all the questions.
So here, I'll quote it for you just to refresh all our memories. Instead of waiting until 2090, that's the year it would take if we keep on the path that we're going on right now to see gender parity in this House. So what commitments are you making, and what is the plan to go forward? There was some notion that we'd had some great improvement from the last election to this election in terms of results for women. It went up 1%, still around 75% men in the House of Commons. Chelsea's question was very direct to the Prime Minister. He chose not to answer it in terms of a specific. We had put before the House previously a way to change the way parties are reimbursed from their election expenses if they nominate more women. Are you in favor of such a proposal?
I'm looking forward to hearing from the committee on their recommendations. I think that there are many different innovative ways that we can encourage women's participation in politics.
Can you remind me, I was trying to look it up before the committee, did you vote for it was a bill in Parliament. Do you recall if you voted for it or not?
I would have to look at the record.
You don't recall?
I don't recall. I don't think I did vote in favor of it, but I would have to double check.
Okay. Some of your colleagues did, within the government ranks. It was one of the recommendations. You rejected. Because what Chelsea was asking the Prime Minister is about his broken promise on electoral reform, and particularly bringing in a more fair voting system, which we know from Equal Voice and from a lot of the other studies, proportional systems tend to elect more women. The Prime Minister's declared himself many times a feminist and his interest in electing more women, but he rejected the proposal that the committee of all parties put forward to him, as you did, for a proportional system. Here is another way of getting at it. As my colleague said, we have to find other ways. One of the ways is through the nomination process, encouraging parties and discouraging them from electing and nominating men and other overrepresented groups in our parliament. You've seen a bill, you've had a chance to vote on such a bill, you've seen the committee report recommending this. The Conservatives joined with the Green and the Bloc in recommending this. I know some Liberals had some interest in it as well. Are you open to accepting such a proposal?
I'm open to receiving such a proposal and other proposals, and I think it's important that we do think about innovative mechanisms to engage women in politics.
Thank you, Minister. Time's up.
Okay.
Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. I want to go to C33, if I may, and I'll focus on the substance of it, and I appreciate the other parts about the tabling, as Mr. Christopherson brought up about the, and I appreciate Mr. Christopherson's comments about that, and yours as well. But I do want to talk about what is this, and to me there's two parts of it. There are things in there that we talked about when we campaigned and what we would do, part of the mandate letter, and the other part is, how would I describe it subtly, is the untangle the tangly bits that were left over from the Unfair Elections Act from the last, which I've often described as being a solution to a problem that never existed. So, and one of those is the voter information card. And I am a huge fan for several reasons. The median age in my riding is high. I have a lot of seniors. And the second part about it is it's also it's a rural area. So a lot of people lack the identification that was required for addresses and so on and so forth. Now, I'm sure a lot of the opposition would say, well, you have to have a certain amount of identification to vote, and a certain amount of identification is required. That I understand. But by doing that, and by creating so many barriers and lifting these barriers to a point where we violated a charter right, which is your right to vote, the voter information card was essential. I could describe it this way. Many seniors would take this card, they put it on their fridge, put it around the kitchen to remind them about voting, but they rely on that so much to walk into the ballot or to the booth and say, I want to cast my vote, and do that. So I appreciate that. So I was wondering if you could comment on that.
I also agree with that, and think that it is very important, and that's why in Bill C-33 we're proposing measures within that legislation to make the voter identification card one piece that could serve as a piece of identification in future elections. I think it's incredibly important. I'm sure many of us in this room and in this Parliament have stories of people who were turned away at the polls because they didn't have proper identification. We know that there are about 120,000 Canadians that cited not voting due to the reason for not voting as a lack of proper identification. And I think that it's one way to ensure that people who have the right to vote are able to vote and can do it as efficiently as possible.
Thank you, Minister. Now, the second part, it deals with what we talked about on the campaign trail that we would do as a government. And this is what interests me. When I first came to Parliament in 2004, there was a debate about lowering the voting age at the time. And the whole point of the debate was to engage young people into voting, as my colleague Ms. Ahoda talked about earlier, about getting young people to vote, to get involved. And it was about the involvement of young people, as was illustrated in Daughters of the Vote. To register from the ages 14 to 17 is a very intriguing idea, and I believe other jurisdictions around the world have tried this, to engage voters into getting involved. Not voting, but getting involved in the registration process. So can I get yours or the officials' thinking about how, give this committee a sense of how this is going to translate into more involvement for people between the ages of 14 and 17?
Certainly, thank you. And I think that this is an important issue. I know that when I go speak to high school students, I always ask them to commit to one thing, and that's to voting when they turn 18. And at that point, at least, they all raise their hands and make that commitment. So I hope that they do follow through with that. But one thing that we know is that when young people start voting and they vote early, they end up voting often. And what I mean by that is it becomes a habit. It becomes something that they do continuously throughout their lives. And so the more we can do to make it easier for young people to be engaged, to be registered, to already be part of that process, I think the better it bodes for the future of participation and engagement in Canadian democracy. Did you have anything you want to add?
Just to say that there are studies, Canada, Australia, US, that indicate that civic education has a positive impact in terms of subsequent civic participation, voter turnout, etc. So there's clearly a body of evidence out there in this area.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, sorry, I don't mean to include you, Ms. Kim. I mean exclude you. Sorry, on that conversation. But it also leads in the fact that one of the other things that C33 will do is to empower the CEO to be more involved with the education aspect and the publicizing of some of the facts about voting. And I get that leads in well to allowing young people to register to vote. So I think I commend you on that. Ms. Kim, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to add that one of the positive aspects of the pre-registration is that it could be used as a fairly concrete call to action when Elections Canada does conduct civic education activities with youth in high schools, so that there's something that they can do to be part of the process. And then other aspects of the bill would then facilitate, for example, receiving a voter information card once you're registered, so you'd have a piece of ID that you could then take to the polls at the same time.
Just back to the VIC again. Am I right in saying that that's really the only piece of federal identification, a thorough federal identification that exists currently across the country?
So the Canada Elections Act provides a number of options to prove your identity and your residence. One of them, if for just one piece of ID, you'd need name, address, and photo. And really that's the driver's license, which is provided by provinces. There's another option where you can have two pieces of ID that collectively would establish your name and address. So there's various federal pieces that Elections Canada has authorized for that list, but it would have to be used in conjunction with another piece of ID.
Thank you. And Minister, earlier you mentioned you'd like some ideas and advice on certain issues. Here's one I would like to put forward for your thought. You don't have to answer yes or no, but it requires a little bit of investigation. But I do believe this exists now in Newfoundland and Labrador, where I'm from, Elections NL. You can't, for the situation of vouching, one of the problems we have in rural areas is a person walks in, forgets their ID. They've just driven about 20, 25 kilometers to get to the poll because that exists in rural Canada. They get turned away for a lack of ID, or they forgot something, they didn't realize they need that second piece, and as they get turned away, they don't come back because they have to drive long distances. Would it be, but it's hard when you're in a small town and you look at someone you've known for 40 years.
Your time's up. You're going to have a conversation with the minister another time.
It's very good of you, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I could tell that Scott was just warming up there. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank the minister. Thank you, Minister, for meeting with me on Monday afternoon. That was, I thought, a very informative and fruitful meeting. Likewise, thank you for adopting what I think is a business-like approach to the legislation necessary to act upon the CEO's recommendations. So that again, much appreciated. And finally, thank you for the 8-page letter in which you responded to my questions regarding the mydemocracy.ca survey. I had some things I wanted to ask about that, but I might just hold off given the exchange you had with Mr. Cullen, and just ask you this question. Why won't you answer his question about when the date on which you were given your mandate letter by the Prime Minister? What's the reason for not answering that?
Well, mandate letters are made public, and mine was made public on February 1st, and that's the day that, it was public, and so that's the day that it was official.
Okay, so it's not the day that was official, actually. The date that it was given to you would be the day that it was official. So let me ask you this way. You became minister on January the 11th, I think?
10th.
10th, okay. Were you given your mandate letter at that time?
At that time, I was sworn into cabinet and began to have briefings and began to engage on the file.
But did you get your mandate letter on the date that you became a minister? Or were you operating for some time as a minister without a mandate letter?
I was operating with the public mandate letter that was available until then.
I think you just lost me. You're saying you were operating under the mandate letter that had been issued to Minister Monsef.
So there's a mandate letter, it's made public, and I was operating under what was public at the time.
Okay, there's a mandate letter that was made public on February the 1st. Was that the mandate letter you were operating under? Were you operating alternatively under the mandate letter that had been issued to Minister Monsef a year and a bit earlier, or were you operating under some third thing? I'm now totally lost here.
So the mandate is public, and whatever was public is the mandate I was operating under at the time.
The mandate is what's in the mandate letter. Is there some other mandate?
No, that's...
Right, so you were operating then under the letter that had been issued to Minister Monsef and not under the one that became public on February the 1st?
So when the mandate, whatever was public, was the mandate I was operating under at the time for that minister.
So that means that you did receive your mandate letter, the one that became public on February the 1st, on the date on which you became a minister, January the 12th, or 10th, I'm sorry. The mandate you received on January 10th, the mandate letter that became public on February the 1st, correct?
The mandate letter that was public at the time of January 10th was the mandate I was operating under.
So it is, okay, Minister Monsef. Okay,
yeah.
all right, that's helpful. Okay, so you did not receive your mandate letter on January the 10th then. Let me ask you this question, now that we've established that you got a new mandate letter after January the 10th. Around January the 24th or thereabouts, the Cabinet met in Calgary. There's been a leak about what happened in that meeting. We are told that you argued passionately in favor of moving away from the referendum on electoral reform, and that your arguments persuaded everybody in Cabinet except one. There was one dissenting vote. Did you have your mandate letter at that time, or were you operating under Minister Monsef's old mandate letter when that argument was being made to the Cabinet?
I was operating under the mandate that was public at the time of those discussions, but I can't comment on Cabinet conversations.
No, you can't, and neither can the person who leaked it, which raises the question of why there were two separate Liberal sources, according to the stories, that leaked it. I asked the House Leader why there wasn't an investigation. She just said, well, there isn't one. Of course, the answer is the Prime Minister authorized this, which is a really unprofessional thing to do. It's not actually illegal, but it's certainly a breach of convention. But that doesn't answer my question. So I think we established then that you were issued your mandate letter, the one that was made public on February 1st, sometime between January the 24th or 5th, whenever it was, and February the 1st. I think that now appears to be what you're saying. Is that correct? That's when you got the new mandate letter, not the previous one?
So you're putting
You only have 10
putting
seconds,
words
Minister.
in here, and what I'm saying is that the mandate letter was made public on February 1st, and I was operating under the mandate that was public at the time.
Which must have been Minister Monsef's mandate letter.
Which is, yeah.
Because there is no other, I've got the public information too, and there's only that letter and the February 1st letter, so it's got to be one or the other. And I think you've just told us it was the Monsef letter, which I accept at face value.
Your time's
Am I wrong on that?
Your time's up. Mr. Graham.
Thank you. I want to start off by responding to a point that Mr. Cullen made early on about gender balance. There's more to it than that. There's the commitment of gender, and at this table, there are 3 women members at this table, and they are all Liberals. On the Election Reform Committee, there was only 2 parties that provided women for that committee. It was the Liberals and the Green Party. So I just wanted to put that out there. But that's not the line I want to go down. In your opening remarks, you said you would like our report on the elections officer's report by the end of June, or preferably by May 19th, which I can understand. But for the benefit of those watching, this is a televised meeting. Can you explain the process of what happens after that, how we get to a bill, and why it's important to do it then in terms of the process, both with you and with Cabinet and with Elections Canada, to get this ready for an election? So therefore, why a deadline like that is actually important to us.
Well, and it's not a hard deadline. Of course, the committee is going to set the timeline for the work that they're going to do. It's just that I do value the input of the committee, and I think that you provide valuable contributions on these on these items and on these issues. And so therefore, for that to be able to feed in its fullness to the legislative process moving forward, it would be very helpful to me, and I think to Canadians, to hear and reflect on, to hear from the committee and hear their reflections within that time period, because after receiving the, I'll start backwards. So in October 2019, there's going to be Elections Canada needs time to implement any potential recommendations or amendments to the Canada Elections Act in time to deliver them for the 2019 election. Though we don't have a set time frame, we know that that's likely a number of months, if not more, and the more time available, the better for Elections Canada and the dedicated officials there to ensure that they get that done right. Moving back, that means that legislation would have to be passed sometime within the next year and a half. In order for that to be accomplished, for that to happen, legislation would have to be presented, in early, in the fall perhaps, or by the end of the year at the very latest, for that to go through the whole legislative process, for it to have the time for the committee to study, for it to have the time for it to be debated in Parliament. And in order to do that, legislation would need to be drafted and would need to go to Cabinet ahead of that. And so all of that kind of puts us within that 2.5-year time frame. And I know that this is important legislation and important, there are important elements of this for all members of this committee that we want to get done in time for the next election to ensure that all Canadians have a fair, accessible, and equitable chance to vote.
So it's clear from now that if we're still doing this study a year from now, it's not going to be, it'll be a little late to actually act on it.
I mean, the committee is, in charge of its own affairs, but it would, I think it's valuable input. I think it would be worthwhile to have that be part of the considerations moving forward, and so I hope to be able to receive that so that it can feed into my thoughts and my recommendations to the government.
That's great. One more quick point I wanted to make. You listed quite a number of clauses in the report that you are looking forward to our feedback on, which I very much appreciate. I think it's a really good approach for us going forward to know where the priorities are, because I think there's quite a lot left in that report to get through. So I just want to say I really appreciate that list. There are more answers coming that we've already discussed. I can't get more details about that. But I really appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the fact that you came. I know that Scott Sinn's just been getting warmed up. I wanted to know if you wanted to finish one last minute of his question line.
Someone else who's gracious. Thank you, sir. Thank you, David. What I was going to suggest was that in smaller areas, and again, I'm not looking for an answer, but right now, but in smaller areas, you'll find that the poll supervisor has the power to vouch for individuals. It's bizarre when somebody walks up and says, "I'm sorry, even though I've known you for 40 years, I can't vouch for you. I don't know you." It becomes a common thing throughout rural areas. And if someone in that position, like a supervisor or someone of that level, had the power to vouch multiple times and sign for it and swear to it by whatever legal measures are needed, that would go a long way, especially in rural areas. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. You just finished on time. Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I got another opportunity so we can carry on. I got off on a little bit of a mini rant at the end of the last round, and so you didn't have a chance to respond, so I wanted to be fair, obviously, and give you that opportunity. But just kind of to sort of refresh where we were at. Actually was just kind of looking in the interim at the transcript again from when you appeared in the Senate, and I think this actually summarizes what I was kind of referring to quite well, and I can then let you respond. And it was in response to a question from Senator Frum. And you had, as I think I mentioned earlier, you had said that with regard to foreign money in the Canadian political process, it's very important to note that in Canada we do have very strict financing laws. It was the same point that you used earlier when I was asking you questions as well, about who can donate to a political party or a third party or a candidate during a writ period. Now, during a writ period is obviously the key there. And then in response to that, Minister Frum actually put this quite succinctly, the concern that I have here, when she said to you, Minister, would you agree that it is possible for foreign entities to make donations to third-party organizations outside of the writ period, and that money ends up getting used during the writ period? That's the loophole that I'm referring to. And she asked you then, would you not say that that is a very serious threat to our political sovereignty? You then thanked her for her questions and said that from your experience you found it wasn't something that was currently present or that was significant that it would impact the election. But then you did go on to say, however, I take your point and I appreciate it, it's something that I will definitely consider. Later on in that same meeting, in response to Senator Batters, you also, about the same topic, you also indicated, I will continue to work with my staff and colleagues in this place and in the other place to ensure that we put reasonable spending limits for third parties between elections. So it kind of seemed like on one hand you were sort of brushing it off, saying this isn't really something there's any concern about, but then on the other hand you're saying, well, we'll consider it, and we actually do think that we need to look at putting some reasonable spending limits in place for third parties between elections. So I'm kind of trying to get a sense as which one is it? Do you have concerns, and do you think this needs to be addressed or not? And if yes or no, why or why not?
Sure. And thank you, Blake, again for your question. So just addressing your first question with regards to the possibility of foreign money being used in terms of advertising during an election. Currently, as it stands, third parties are required to report to Elections Canada all donations they've received in the 6 months prior to a writ being announced. So that is a mechanism that's in place at the moment. I, of course, am always interested to look and to see if we think that this is an issue and it is of concern. At this point in time, it's not something that we have vast evidence of being concerned about, but I welcome your concerns and I welcome any evidence that you would have to suggest otherwise. So.
Now, do you, in the briefing that you have committed to giving to this committee, what was that something that was looked at? Was this something that you were briefed on in that briefing, or is this because you just said you'll consider it and you'll look at it? That obviously would imply that there was some intention to look at it. Now, this briefing, I suppose, could have occurred since those February 7th and February 14th meetings. So was it looked at in those briefings, and were you briefed fully on this and now feel there's no need, or is this something you'll continue to look at this point?
So yes, it was part of the briefings, but it was also something that, from the advice given, is not something that we think is imminent right now in Canada, but that doesn't mean that we won't stop considering it, because I think it is important, but it's not of grave concern. Did you want to add on to that?
Sure, Mr. Chair.
I'll let you respond, but I wanted to kind of just follow up on that quickly. There certainly seems to be dispute. There is certainly those out there who would say this is a problem. There is organizations that
So do you have? I would welcome your examples or suggestions that you have of this.
Let me just finish, because it's there's the possibility that it's actually a problem. You may have information to the contrary, and that's why we're asking for your briefing, obviously. But would you not concede that there is a chance that this could certainly be a problem? If it isn't already a problem, do you not see how it might be a problem in our elections? If a third party could in fact give unlimited amounts to a third party, if a foreign entity can give unlimited amounts to a third party prior to an election, that money could then be spent during an election.
So, but there are
do you not see?
There are limits on third-party spending within a writ period itself that apply to all third parties in Canada.
Correct.
So, I think it's important to look at it within the wider regulatory and legislative framework as well. But that being said, I think it's always important for a democracy, for a government, for a country, for a citizenry to be constantly reflecting and monitoring situations.
Thank you, Minister. That's time. And we'll go on to Mr. Chan.
Thank you, Minister. I really want to express my appreciation for you being here today. I want to basically follow up on the line of questioning that my colleague David Graham had started with respect to timelines, and you'd specifically mentioned a May 19th deadline, and the committee's received some information that there may be other substantive work that we need to consider as well, and I'm asking this line of questioning simply because I'm trying to figure out a process of dealing with what might suddenly be a very heavy workload for all of us. And so I wanted to understand, was your May 19th deadline one where you wanted us to hopefully complete the Chief Election Officer's report, to review that and report back to the House? That was my first line of question. And then my second piece is with respect to Bill C-33. Of course, we have not received that from the House yet in terms of review of that piece of legislation. But would it be helpful for us to potentially pre-review it on the assumption that it would come to us fairly intact?
So thank you for both of your questions. I will reiterate, the committee is, in charge and responsible for their own work plan. It would be very helpful for me to have another interim report, because the first one I found very useful in terms of my thinking. And as a path forward, the recommendations that I had specifically outlined in my opening remarks are ones that if the committee were interested in focusing on, I think would be particularly useful for reflections moving forward. I recognize that there are over 130 recommendations, so that is quite the task, and maybe you won't be able to get to all of them by that date, but if you're able to provide some reflection and guidance and thoughts and your thinking with regards to some of them, if not all of the ones that I mentioned, although all of them would be welcome, I would be appreciative. And I hope to be able to receive as much as you're able to do in due course, because that will help as I move forward. So.
My follow-up line of questions, of course, from the first interim report, we asked for a response, obviously, from your office or from you with respect to our recommendations going back to the House. And it would be my assumption that we would probably go down the same line as we work through the rest of the report and report it back. Could you commit to providing us that reply as expeditiously as possible, and certainly before the deadline of May 19th? I mean, obviously, it depends on when we, for example, submit our report to the House. So I recognize we have to give you a reasonable amount of time to respond, but obviously, your comprehensive response to that would be helpful for us in terms of figuring out how to sequence our work, because I suspect that at the pace that we're going at right now, we're not going to get there, and we might need to reconsider how we work as a committee to get as much as possible in front of you. The question I'm really leading to is, are you anticipating further legislation coming from you, regardless of whether this committee reports to you or not?
So I will endeavor to report back to you as soon as I can. I think this is a priority. I think that would be possible depending on what the recommendations are coming out of subsequent reports with regards to the CEO recommendations. Obviously, this would be something that I'd have to bring to Cabinet and report back on. But it's also, I think, there are elements within the CEO report that would require legislative changes. And if that's something that we're favorable to, then that would be the timeline. That would be the process that we would be looking to pursue.
Okay. I think we're out of time.
No. We have one more round. 3 minutes for Mr. Christofferson, and that'll end the session.
Very good. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you ensuring our last spot. I would turn my time over to my colleague, Mr. Cullen.
So thank you, David. Thank you, Chair. So, Minister, forgive me if I'm a bit confused. So let's circle on back. When I guess at committee, whenever a minister pleads the Canadian equivalent of the fifth, we all sort of perk up a little bit and wonder what's going on. So there were two mandates happening. One mandate says your government's, the first one, the previous one, said your government's committed to electoral reform and to bring in a new voting system before the next election, right? The second mandate says not so much. We're going to break that commitment. We're doing something else. You're brought into Cabinet on the 10th, correct? Okay. Cabinet gets together later in January on the 24th, 25th. And you make public your new mandate letter on the 1st. Have I got everything right so far? Sorry?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. I just want to make sure I got the facts straight. You can understand why some of us are a bit confused why you just can't tell us when you received the new one. So Did at any point you have an old mandate letter, previously Minister Monsef's directions to keep the promise on electoral reform, and were given a second one that was not yet made public?
So the mandate letter was made public on February 1st,
Right.
which is when the Prime Minister and I announced the new direction in the mandate letter, and that's
Right.
how things have proceeded
Okay.
since then. And I'm looking forward to working on this mandate,
Sure.
and I'm looking forward to delivering for Canadians, and I'm looking forward to working with this committee to
We-
make sure that we get the
We heard that
Elections
before.
Act updated, that we repeal the unfair elements of the
So here's the-
so-called Fair Elections
here's the
Act,
point.
and I'm looking forward to
You
getting
s-
that good work
I got-
done because we need to work
I'm limited
together
on
as
time, Minister.
Canadians.
So you said to this committee, I sincerely want to work with you at the end of your statement. That pinged for me because it was almost exactly the words you said to me the night before you went out to backtrack on your government's promise in our conversation. You said, I sincerely want to work with you and go ahead with this. My question is, at that time, when you were consulting with me, with the Conservatives and the official opposition, when you were phoning folks like Fair Vote and Lead Now, saying, I sincerely want to work with you, did you have in your possession the knowledge that you were going to be breaking this commitment on electoral reform?
So I still sincerely want to work with you because I think there are lots of things that we can do together to improve the election system in Canada. I think that that's precisely what I hope to be able to do with this
But
committee.
sincerity
I have
also
a mandate
implies
to deliver.
integrity
I have
and
a
honesty.
mandate to work on, and I think that the valuable input from this committee is going to be really important to make sure that we get this right.
You
for
must
Canadians.
somehow see the irony, though, of the few seconds I have remaining, of being the Minister of Democratic Institutions and not being transparent if, in fact, you had a second contrary, conflicting mandate in your possession when you were speaking to me or the others who are involved with this issue, or while you defended a position at the cabinet table. That is entirely contradictory to the spirit of what your government was elected in on.
Thank you, Nathan. Our time's up. And we'd like to thank the minister for coming and the staff that accompanied her, and I'm sure the other staff. And we'll look forward to our next meeting, moving on with our report on electoral reform.